Hello, Star Wars fans. Michael the Librarian of Magic here, finding and cataloging the magical and pointing you to it. I've returned to talk about the latest episode of the Clone Wars final season, which is episode 9, entitled Old Friends Not Forgotten. It's kicking off the last story arc of the final season, which is all about the Siege of Mandalore, and this is an event that many of us have been waiting to see on screen here, that fans have been looking forward to, and that the writers and creators have been alluding to, and it seems that that is finally upon us. So I'm going to delve straight into recapping and reviewing the episode. As always, this will be spoiler heavy as I sort of step through the episode and give my thoughts on it. So just know that right away if you've happened to stumble on this video. And without any further ado, I'm going to jump into my notes and have fun following along. So this episode begins a little bit differently than the others have right off the bat. There's like a little Lucasfilm limited production banner at the beginning, and then rather than the opening Star Wars bang hits, and rather than having the Clone Wars version of the Star Wars theme music, it has the traditional John Williams theme music. So it's a slightly different intro. It almost had a vibe like this final story arc is sort of being told as a film unto itself in a way. But yeah, there was sort of a different presentation at the beginning of this, which is kind of interesting. It sort of got me in the mood to watch the episode, so that was a cool little touch. The beginning of the episode, the narrator tells us that the Outer Rim and many of the planets out there have been under siege by General Grievous and the Separatist forces, and that the Republic is starting to lose their stronghold on many of these planets. The Jedi Council dispatches Jedi generals out to various places, including Plo Koon. They send Plo Koon to Cato Neimoidia, I think. And they send another general to Felucia to try to help work on all these various battles at the same time. Excuse me. I'm going to get a drink of water here. I'm a little hoarse. So then they cut to the planet Urbana, I think Urbana, and there's a big battle going on there. There's all these separatist droids that are there fighting these clone headhunters, and there's the LAT gunships that are clone resupply ships are there. There's a big battle that's going on. Commander Cody is there commanding his troops. And he's getting pretty desperate for help. They're getting beat back by all of these different droids. One of the lead clone headhunter guys gets killed, and they're just getting beat down by the separatists here, to the point where Cody and the remainder of the forces there have to sort of take cover in this area, and they're being borne down on by a bunch of different types of droids. This is something that I'm keen on. I'm a big droid fan, so I had to go and look all this stuff up. There are dwarf spider droids there, Octoptara droids, and NR N99 Persuader class droid enforcers, as well as all of your typical, like battle droids, like B1 battle droids. And then somewhere in the midst of all of this, there is a tactical droid that's not making itself known, because the tactical droid is the one that's sort of, has all the control and tactics over the unit. They can't really tactically function without him. So he's kind of hidden in there somewhere, almost like a game of Stratego, if you're familiar with that board game where you kind of have some of your special forces hidden in there. Anyway, that's besides the point. So all of the clone armies are being sort of outgunned by the separatists here on Urbana, and they're about to fire this missile straight at Commander Cody, and just at the last minute you see this great sort of moment where Obi-Wan Kenobi drops in and uses his lightsaber to deflect the incoming missile, and it's just kind of like cool slow-mo Obi-Wan moment. And he tells Cody to get down, and he starts fighting off some of the droids himself. The rest of the clone troopers fall back. Obi-Wan and Cody sort of go into retreat together and get pinned down to sort of regroup. And they're trying to figure out what to do next. Cody tells Kenobi, "We're trying here, but we haven't been able to locate the tactical droid in order to take him out, so they're kind of getting the better of us." And Obi-Wan wonders aloud where Anakin is. He's hoping for Anakin's help, and Anakin is, "I'm right behind you." He happens to be standing there all of a sudden right behind them. And Anakin wonders, "What are you guys doing down there? How come you're sitting there under cover?" And Kenobi tells him, "We're taking cover. Get down. You're going to get harmed." And Skywalker is in brash confidence mode, and he tells Obi-Wan, I'm not intimidated by 1,000 little droids. I have a plan." And Obi-Wan wants to know, where's Captain Rex in all of this? And Skywalker says, "Look, we finished our battle, and we're coming here to help you with yours." So Anakin is in like real overconfident mode, and Kenobi tells him so. He tells him, "I think you're overdoing it a little bit here, Anakin." And Anakin fires right back at him and says, "Well, I could come and hide with you and let all these people on this planet continue to suffer, or you could do what I'm trying to say. You could follow my plan." And Kenobi says, "Fine, we'll follow you. Let us know what the plan is." And Anakin says, "Stay put where you are, and I got the plan." So the Separatist droids continue their assault, and they watch Anakin stride out confidently in the midst of the battle, almost similar to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi in a way. He just sort of wanders out into no man's land pretty confidently. And the commander of all the battle droids orders them to cease their attack on all of the different clones and orders them to concentrate fire onto Anakin. But Anakin interrupts all of that and says, no need for that. I've come to surrender to you." And he starts complimenting the droids, telling them, "We're here to surrender, and you just have us outmatched and outflanked and gunned, and we're very impressed by your decisive abilities." The battle droid commander says, "Oh, this is very good news that you're surrendering. I'll inform the tactical droid." And Anakin keeps flattering the droids, telling them they're valiant and that they've been outmatched and all that stuff. And then it cuts to showing that R2-D2 and a bunch of the clone commandos and Rex are underneath the bridge that they're all standing on. R2 is like magnetized there, and all the rest of the guys are hanging on to the bottom. There's a whole bunch of clones underneath them, and they're basically waiting for Anakin's signal to continue. Skywalker, then the tactical droid basically makes himself visible, which is sort of Skywalker's gambit all along, and Skywalker tells the tactical droid, "I'm going to surrender to you." And the tactical droid immediately notifies the commander droid, "This is clearly a trap. You should fire immediately." And when he gives the order to fire, Anakin gives a signal to R2, and all the clones that are underneath the bridge are jetpack troopers, and they all come flying out at once and start attacking the droids. When that element of surprise happens, Anakin is able to use the Force to grab the tactical droid and pull him toward him, slices his head off with a lightsaber, so they no longer have their tactical droid, which was Anakin's plan all along, to get them to reveal him so they could take him out. The jetpack troopers start taking out everything, planting bombs on those big Octoop Tara tri-droid things and spider droids, and taking them all out, and basically the Republic forces get the upper hand of this whole thing and take out the Separatists here in this little battle. And then there's another little catty interchange between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Or Obi-Wan compliments Anakin, telling him that was a good little plan. Anakin says, "Thanks for helping us with the victory." And Obi-Wan sarcastically says that he's always glad to help. They have this little snarky thing. We're starting to clearly move into more adversarial territory with Anakin and Obi-Wan. The story is getting to a point where they're realistically not that far from Anakin turning on the Jedi Council and murdering everybody. That shouldn't be a spoiler alert to anybody who doesn't know that Anakin is Darth Vader eventually. But that point in the storyline is actually coming relatively soon. So Anakin is starting to be a lot less patient with Obi-Wan, and a lot less Padawan-ish, and a little bit more, asserting his own point of view. So at this point, they're standing around in the wake of their victory, and they get Anakin gets a buzz on his comlink from Admiral Yularen, Wolf Yularen, who's on a Star Destroyer up above somewhere. And he lets Anakin know that they've received a contact from somebody using a special subspace frequency called Fulcrum. Anakin thinks that it might be Saw Gerrera. He mentions Saw. If you haven't seen Rebels or read some of the novels or comic books, you may most probably be familiar with Saw Gerrera from Rogue One. He's a character that's played by Forrest Whitaker in that film. He's a rebel leader. He's shown up in Clone Wars once or twice, and he features in Rebels a bit as well. So, if you're unfamiliar with that character, he's pretty cool. There's quite a bit more to him in the animated shows and the novels and stuff than you see in Rogue One. So he's an interesting character. Anyway, Anakin thinks that it may be Saw Gerrera on the other end of the frequency. And at which point, Obi-Wan says, well, the Siege of Onderon must not be going so well for Saw. So that kind of gives us a little bit of the timeline here where we're placing all of this stuff. It lets me know that in general, we've been hoping that most likely the Clone Wars show will take us right up to the point where Episode 3 begins, but it seems as if there's actually going to be some overlap. So we may go past the point to a certain extent where Episode 3 begins. There may be some dovetailing into that and sort of meshing together. Probably not too far into Episode 3, but we'll see by the time this story arc finishes up how far into that storyline they overlap. But that's kind of a cool thing. So Yularen says on the comm, it's not Saw Gerrera. It's probably going to be best for you to come back up to the ship in order to take this call. So they get on one of those transport ships and go up to the Star Destroyer. And when they get back on the bridge, they see that Ahsoka is being projected on the holoprojector, and Anakin is surprised, of course, and tells her, hey, it's been a while since we've spoken. And Obi-Wan is also equally surprised. And Ahsoka is also standing in frame next to a Mandalorian warrior, so that also raises the curiosity of the Jedi. After they just, say hi to each other, basically, Ahsoka gets straight down to business. She tells Anakin and Obi-Wan that she and Lady Bo-Katan have located Maul, and if they act quickly, they might be able to capture him. Later on, after the transmission and everything, Obi-Wan and Anakin are walking around, chatting with each other, and Anakin remarks that it's interesting that, in his opinion, Ahsoka may not have been where she needed to be in order to be in this position to capture Maul if she had not actually left the Jedi Order. So it's fortuitous that she actually left. And Obi-Wan says, well, that's one way to look at it. Anakin says it's the only way to look at it. We have a chance to capture Maul. So this is an interesting little piece of dialogue here because, again, it reinforces that Anakin is not just doing whatever Obi-Wan says at this point or agreeing with everything that he says at this point. Not that he ever was totally in agreement with him before, but he's not nearly as submissive. And also, it highlights that Anakin has more of an understanding or compassion for Ahsoka having left the Order overall, which is interesting because it seems as if they're sort of, in a storytelling sense, planting the seeds of Ahsoka's leaving being one of the things that makes it a little bit easier for Anakin to justify himself leaving the Order or wanting to leave the Order later on down the road. Also, in this little thing, we get sort of hints at the way it's played that Obi-Wan is still not very happy with Ahsoka for having left the Order, and he's still feeling pretty bitter about that. So it is an interesting little exchange overall. And Anakin notes that Obi-Wan is feeling a little crusty about it all, and says, "Hey, aren't you excited that we're going to capture Maul?" And Obi-Wan has an interesting line where he says, he's cautiously optimistic, but that he's killed Maul once before, and he's finds it tricky for Maul to be able to stay dead. So we'll see what happens. At which point, as they're walking towards this hangar, a Mandalorian shuttle lands in there, and Ahsoka gets off the gangplank along with Lady Bo-Katan and some other Mandalorians, and they're greeted by R2, and all kinds of reunions happen. Anakin clearly just sort of wants to chat. He wants to catch up with Ahsoka, and she's straight to business. She doesn't really want to cavort. And she and Lady Bo-Katan are there to plead with the Jedi for help, basically. And so that's what they're doing. And so they're afraid of every minute they waste, Maul has a chance to get away. Obi-Wan says, he understands, we should talk about it. So they head over to the war room, the Jedi Council war room on this ship, and Ahsoka explains that they've been tracking Maul, Bo-Katan's been tracking Maul, and Ahsoka explains what happened with the Pikes on Obadiah, basically, and how they've been able to pinpoint his locations, and they found that he is on Mandalore in the city of Sundari, and they know that he's there. Obi-Wan wants to know just how certain they are, and Bo-Katan replies that they're pretty sure he arrived there within the last couple of days, and that's why they're seeking the Republic assistance, because they think if they move now, they can get him there, and without reinforcement, Maul, they might not be able to overtake him, basically. So Bo-Katan wants this operation to occur to liberate Mandalore, which is problematic for the Jedi because it would break a bunch of really old treaties and draw the Republic further into more wars than the wars that they're already in, and Bo-Katan doesn't really see that as an issue. Of course, she has her biases. Obi-Wan has his doubts. Anakin even has some of his own doubts about that. They're willing to advise the Jedi Council. That's kind of what Obi-Wan's reply is, which just pisses Bo-Katan off because she thinks that's much too slow. She wants quick, decisive action. We don't have time. Maul will escape. Mandalore is in trouble. And then Bo-Katan tries to hit below the belt and remind Obi-Wan that Maul is responsible for the death of Duchess Satine, who is somebody who she knows meant a lot to Obi-Wan. And she asks him straight up, does she still mean anything to you? And Obi-Wan replies, yes, she did, and she does. but he's not going to try to let his feelings cloud his judgment. He's trying to be a good Jedi. So he leaves, and that kind of, leaves Bo-Katan pretty ticked off. So much so that she tells Ahsoka, this was a mistake coming here. I knew this is what was going to happen. They're not going to act. They're not going to listen to us. It's a total waste of time. We should have been over there trying to figure out what to do about Darth Maul ourselves, or Sith Lord Maul, I guess. And, they know that it was probably a mistake in coming. Ahsoka gets a chance to speak to Anakin in private, and she says, wow, I guess you and Obi-Wan haven't really changed that much. You kind of acted the way that I expect you to. And Anakin's like, well, why did you expect us to do anything different? Is it a bad thing that we are doing what we're doing? She doesn't know what to say to that, because she's having her own struggles with the whole Jedi philosophy at this point, which is a really interesting thing that they've sort of built into this storyline. She doesn't really know what to think about it. Anakin's leading her to a spot where he has a surprise for her. And as she's walking down this corridor, she's getting saluted by clone troopers, which is a surprise to her because she doesn't consider herself a commander or a Jedi, and she doesn't see any reason for them to be deferent to her at all. And she wonders about that aloud, and Anakin explains to her that they've been with her in battle. They went through a bunch of stuff with her, and all these clones really care about the most is loyalty, and they don't really care whether or not she has a rank or anything like that. They're saluting her because they respect her, because they fought with her. And then Anakin at that point leads her into a hangar, and Captain Rex and his whole company of clones are there, and they're lined up in formation, and they all salute Ahsoka when she comes in, and they all have their helmets painted with orange in the configuration of Ahsoka's face markings, and it's a very touching moment. It's very well done. And very well earned story-wise, and they all salute her. They address her as Commander. She says, you don't have to do that, and they say, whatever you say, Commander. It's kind of a nice, touching little moment. At that point, Anakin says, I have another surprise for you, and he holds out a box, which we know has Ahsoka's sabers inside of there. He's giving them back to her. And before she's able to grab it and open them up, alarm bells go off and all this kind of stuff. Obi-Wan runs into the hangar and says, they got to go immediately. They're jumping into hyperspace. Get your forces going. Rex gets the clones going right away. And Anakin's like, well, are we going to Mandalore? Is that what this is all about? Was that approved that quickly? Anakin says, no, General Grievous is attacking Coruscant right now. Skywalker's first priority, of course, is to ask about Palpatine, because why would he ask about anybody else, including his wife, or the rest of the other Jedi, who are all on Coruscant? No, he's concerned first and foremost for Palpatine. So that lets you know also kind of where this is slowly headed. Obi-Wan says they sent somebody, the council sent somebody to protect Palpatine. I think Shaak Ti is who he says. And, but they haven't been able to contact her since they dispatched her. Mace Windu is apparently working on it. Kenobi tells Skywalker, we can be there in an hour. We got to get going now. This kind of ruffles Ahsoka's feathers, because she thinks the Jedi are just straight up abandoning Bo-Katan and Mandalore and everything like that. And Obi-Wan tries to explain, look, this is a, this is happening right now. You know, this is a huge moment in the midst of the Clone Wars and everything, and the capital of the Republic is under attack right now. And Ahsoka says, you're just thinking about the political side of this, and that's why regular people don't have faith in the Jedi anymore. You're playing the politics game. And she tells him that she was recently reminded of what the Order can mean to people who are truly in need, which is one of the reasons why I think the storyline of her and the Martez sisters was kind of important for building this up, because Ahsoka needed to learn that lesson of this balance of I mean, she just left the Order. She needed to understand. She needed some event to help her get to a spot where she is of the belief that the Jedi can do some good. The Jedi are of value, but the way that the Council is and the way that they go about their business is wrong-headed and is causing people to lose faith in something they shouldn't be losing faith in. And is causing the group to not be helpful in the galaxy when they are supposed to be. So it's really interesting that she's kind of coming around to all that stuff. And it puts it another interesting thing about it all is it puts Obi-Wan in a really, really awkward situation. And it makes some interesting character developments for him. So he tries to tell her, well, the people on Coruscant need us, and she says, it's just the Chancellor who actually needs you. It's not. That's why you're running in there. It's not about the people and all that stuff. And Obi-Wan thinks that Ahsoka's not being fair, and Ahsoka says, "I'm not trying to be fair. I'm just trying to, call it how I see it, basically." And at that point, Anakin decides to take the 501st and divide it in half and put half of it under Ahsoka's command, so that she can go to Mandalore with some forces behind her. And Obi-Wan is annoyed by this right off the bat. He says she's no longer a commander in the Republic Army. And Anakin says, well, if it makes you feel any better, let's promote Captain Rex to commander, and then we'll have him lead the division, and Ahsoka will be, in an advisory capacity. She'll be some sort of liaison. Ahsoka says, I'm cool with that if Obi-Wan is cool with it. And Obi-Wan says, fine, may the Force be with you, go for it. And they're off. So, Ahsoka thanks Anakin for doing that before they leave. Anakin says that's what friends are for. He still considers her a friend. And since you're going off to where Maul is, that's when he gives her lightsabers back. And then she gets to fully take them out of the box and ignite them up. It's a nice little moment. Anakin has tooled them up so they're in better shape than they were before. And they, it's a nice little thing. I've always liked Ahsoka's lightsaber set. She's got sort of a longer one and a smaller one, almost like a Japanese traditional katana and wakizashi set. And I've always thought that was really cool. The way that she employs those and just the way they look. It's really unique and neat that she has those. And it's cool to see her ignite them up again. And she's been without them for a little bit. So that was a cool little moment. And also, since he reconfigured them, Ahsoka's blades are blue now, which they weren't before. I think they were green. So that's also an interesting, little touch that he did. And he says, look, I'm going to take care of Grievous. You capture Maul. Let's do this thing. And if we do our jobs right, this could be the end of the Clone Wars. So, good luck. And Ahsoka says, Obi-Wan says there's no such thing as luck. And then she wishes him good luck as well. So, it's a nice little moment, and they go their separate ways. And then we cut to first the clones and Ahsoka and everybody landing on Mandalore. And Ahsoka and Rex ride out on a transport, a LAT gunship, and they end up getting Prime Minister Almec on the comm. He's the figurehead that's been installed on Mandalore by Maul after they took out Satine and everything. This guy is a real piece of work. Like he's just horrible. And he demands to know their presence, and then he sees that it's Bo-Katan and everything like that, and he calls her a traitor, and she says, "Well, you're just Maul's puppet," and all this. They have a nice little back and forth, and he tries to politically threaten her, saying she'll be an enemy, and she says, "That's fine. I don't care that you're trying to pit me against my, people and all that stuff. I'm trying to do what's right and everything." Back at the palace, Almec says they're coming. Let's prepare for an attack. And you should inform the Syndicate that we're being invaded. The Syndicate they're talking about is Crimson Dawn and all the people that are being led by Maul. And they haven't been in a fight in a while, so they wonder if they're up for it. The Republic ships then descend on the planet. I'm just checking my notes here. They decide to try to figure out if Maul's left the city or not. They're trying to analyze everything. They see forces scrambling around below, so they kind of wonder what's going on. They already see some dead people on the ground, so they don't know exactly what's happening. And some Mandalorian warriors with jetpacks fly out to meet them, and there's a battle that breaks out. The clones fly in, Bo-Katan and the people who are on her side, the Mandalorians that are on her side, fly in. And this is where a really cool scene happens. This battle breaks out, and Rex says, "I'm sorry, Ahsoka, we don't have a jetpack for you." And she says, "Don't need one." Jumps out of the side of the flying ship and just starts doing all kinds of cool Jedi stuff. She uses her force powers to jump down onto these other gunships, and she's like pulling on the back of other jetpack troopers and flying from ship to ship and slicing people up. I mean, it's just something that I can't even describe to do it any justice. You just have to see it happen. But it's a real great moment for Ahsoka, and it's this really solid Star Wars action. It's pretty awesome. And so, yeah, it's just this whole sequence that's really great. And basically, they're sort of able to drive off Almec's, Mandalorian forces, essentially, and get down into the city. Rex and Ahsoka run their way into the city after everybody lands, and stuff like that. So they run down through the streets and doing battle along the way. Almec is saying that the Republic forces are bearing down quickly. They already took over the docks, which is what happened when Ahsoka did all of her cool stuff with all the jetpack troopers, and they ripped through all these ships and everything. They took over this position. So Almec tells everybody to retreat to the Undercity below. It's like kind of like a sewer networker, kind of. It's sort of what it looks like. But it's sort of just an underground portion of their city. So they do that. They lead a lot of their forces down there and sort of allow Bo-Katan and everybody to capture the upper city above of Sundari. So they kind of surrender that particular position. They haven't done yet what they came to do, which is find Maul. And Bo-Katan tells Ahsoka and Rex that we need to act quickly still, because he could get away, and we don't have forces that can withstand a long, drawn-out siege if we're trying to pin him down or stuff like that. We just don't have the time and forces to be able to do that. So she's going to try to... Bo-Katan says she's going to the throne room to try to deal with Almec. They should find... the two of them should go find Maul. Ahsoka tells Rex to go to the back to the docks and try and make sure that Maul doesn't escape. And Rex thinks that might be a mistake, that they could be playing directly into Maul's hands. But one of Rex's captains, Captain Vaughn, tells Rex that they found something. So Ahsoka and Rex and everything go to where Vaughn's forces are. They find a way to get into the Undercity. And Ahsoka is trying to formulate a plan, basically, as to leading some troopers, a group of troopers to the outside and a group of troopers down to the Undercity. Then it cuts over to the throne room, and we see Almec getting intel from one of his people that they saw Jedi going into the lower city. And Almec says, well, this is just what Maul predicted would happen. So it appears as if they are playing into his plan, as Rex suggested. And at that point, Bo-Katan and her loyalists bust into the throne room and start getting into a battle with Almec's guards and stuff like that. And then Bo-Katan fights Almec hand to hand, which is also a really cool scene. And she subdues him pretty handily, actually. It's not that long of a fight, as you would expect, because Almec is a weasel. I mean, he's not prepared for any of this stuff. And then we just cut over to well, before we cut over, Bo-Katan wants, now that she has taken has Almec pinned down, she wants to know, where's Maul? Tell me where he is. And she says, or he says, I'm not. You're not the politician you think you are. I'm not revealing all that stuff. But he does tell her, Maul wanted you to bring the Jedi here, but you brought the wrong one. And that's because, as we know from other seasons of the Clone Wars, and just from the films in general, Maul wants his revenge on Obi-Wan for slicing him in half. So Maul was hoping to encounter Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that didn't happen because Ahsoka is here. So, but when he says that, you brought the wrong Jedi, Bo-Katan then becomes aware that Ahsoka is walking directly into a trap, and she tries to radio over to Ahsoka, but Ahsoka's already in the Undercity, and she can't get through. It's just static. So Ahsoka then is starting to walk through the sewers or Undercity, whatever you want to call it, and they're getting, I don't know, it's like a maze, and they're getting attacked, and they can't find their way through. They get attacked by Almec's cronies. They're firing explosives down there and stuff. And the clone troopers want to pursue Rook and his men. Rook is Almec's crony. They want to pursue him and their men, and Ahsoka says, wait, hold back. And they don't. They get killed by people they can't see. Ahsoka rushes in to tend to Vaughn's dying wounds, but he dies while she's holding his hand, and he apologizes to her before dying. She then, at that point, Ahsoka finds herself surrounded by all of the warriors that killed her clone troopers that were with her, and then Maul himself steps out of the shadows. She draws her lightsabers right away in a defensive posture, and Maul says that he was hoping for Kenobi and asks what she's doing here, and that cuts to the credits, to the end of the episode. So that was a really cool ending. Maul made himself known. Ahsoka found him, but she's surrounded. So what's going to happen when we pick up in the next episode? Is Maul going to immediately have a fight with Ahsoka? How's that going to go down? What's going to happen with Anakin and Obi-Wan as they head to Coruscant with the other half of the 501st? We'll see. We'll find out. This is cool. It's all going down now. There's only going to be 3 episodes left. It'll be interesting to see what they do. This is really cool stuff. The best Clone Wars I've seen in a long time, if not ever. Probably not my, well, I don't know, maybe not ever. I have personal favorites, but it's fantastic. This episode was fantastic, and I'm really excited for the way they wrap this up, the way they wrap the season up. So that was the Clone Wars. I know this was a really lengthy episode. I didn't expect to go so long. I'm getting up to 40 minutes here. That was a really long recap, which I'm sorry for, but I guess a lot of stuff happened in this episode, and I diverted to chatting about a few things that I thought were interesting, of note, important to highlight as far as character building and stuff like that. So if this was of interest to you, great. I hope it was. I hope it was entertaining and informative. Thanks for sticking in there with me and watching these. And hopefully that was a nice little break, a little diversion to talk about Star Wars for 40, 45 minutes. That was a nice little long chunk. It was a nice little diversion for me, too, to think about it and kind of get away from everything that's going on in the world and, you know, kind of retreat to Star Wars a little bit. So that was nice to do. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thanks, as always, for watching these. Feel free to give me comments below if you've got any thoughts on this stuff. That would be cool. And until next time, may the Force be with you. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you when they make a new episode of the Clone Wars. Bye-bye.